All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving deep into a really powerful passage from the Quran, Surah Al-Imran, verses 91 through 99. In just these 9 verses, we get what you could call an anatomy of faith. It's an incredible journey that moves from what personal sacrifice really means all the way to the very center of our shared spiritual world. So, let's get started.
To get us going, let's just hold this question in our minds. Is faith just a set of ideas you agree with? A mental checklist? Or is it something you can actually measure by what you're willing to part with, by what you're willing to sacrifice? This passage makes a powerful case that real, authentic faith is found in that very act of giving up.
So, where does the passage begin? It goes straight for one of the biggest questions of all. What's the price of salvation? But here's the twist. The Quran starts by telling us what salvation is not, and what kind of currency is absolutely, totally worthless when it comes to our ultimate destination.
Wow, just let that sink in for a second. Imagine an entire planet filled with gold, and you try to offer it as a ransom, and the answer is no. The message here is just completely stark and absolute.
This sets up such an incredible contrast, doesn't it? The Quran takes the ultimate symbol of wealth and power in this world, an entire earth made of gold, and says it has exactly zero value as a bargaining chip later on. You just can't buy your way out. Salvation isn't a transaction. The only currency that matters is sincere faith.
Okay, so if an entire world of gold gets you nowhere, then what does? The passage immediately pivots. It flips from what doesn't work to what does. And it introduces this core concept, this state of being that is the absolute pinnacle of goodness.
You know, this is easily one of the most powerful and, frankly, one of the most challenging verses in all of Islamic ethics. It's a direct call to action. But not just any action. It's a call for a very, very specific kind of giving.
The key word here is birr. Now, it often gets translated as goodness or righteousness, but that doesn't quite do it justice. Think of it as the summit, the absolute peak of goodness and piety. And the Quran is saying you cannot reach this peak. You can't even get there without a very specific key. So this isn't about charity with your leftovers, right? The things you don't need anymore. The verse is crystal clear. You have to give from what you love. This act, infak, is the real test. It's designed to cut that unhealthy attachment we all have to our stuff. That is the ultimate resistance. Overcoming your own soul's attachment to the material world. That's the real challenge of faith. So from this really deep internal struggle with our attachments, the Quran then zooms out. It shifts its focus to the world outside, to historical debates that were happening in the community. And it basically sets out to correct the record. What's happening here is the Quran is weighing in on debates about things like dietary laws. And it makes this really crucial historical point. It says, hold on, a lot of these rules and prohibitions came later. They weren't part of the original pure faith.
So you see this clear split being made. On one side, you have this rigid religious formalism, getting bogged down in rules and rituals that came later. And on the other, you have this call to return to a primordial faith. The whole point is to strip away all those layers that have been added over time and get back to the pure, unadulterated core.
And that core faith has a name, Hanif. A Hanif is someone who is all about that pure, original monotheism, the faith of Abraham. It's a state of belief that's free from all the later dogmatic additions. It's just a straight, clear focus on the one true God. That's the ideal.
So, after this call to return to a pure, primordial faith, the passage does something amazing. It grounds this whole journey in a real, physical place. It gives us a universal anchor, the very first house of worship ever established for all of humanity.
Now, this is a huge claim. At a time when there were discussions about which direction to pray, the sanctity of different places, the Quran comes in and says the very first house built for worshiping the one God was in Bekke.
It's almost like a spatial memory for humanity, right? The Quran is saying the Kaaba in Bekke, which is an ancient name for Mecca, isn't just a center for one group of people. No, it's the foundational, shared starting point for monotheistic worship for everyone.
And then the verse goes on to describe what makes this place so unique. It's not just some old building. It's a place filled with signs, with safety, and with a sacred duty.
Let's just break that down. The Kaaba is a space of iman, of profound security. Whoever enters it is safe. It's a living museum,
holding clear signs like the Station of Abraham, which is a direct physical link back to that primordial faith we talked about. And it's the destination for a universal duty, the Hajj. And get this, the verse describes it not as something we choose to do, but as a right that God has over humanity. Making that journey is like physically renewing the spiritual contract between you and your Creator.
And all of this brings us to the climax of the passage. After establishing what true sacrifice is, correcting the history, and identifying the universal center of worship, the Quran issues a powerful, direct challenge.
The tone here just completely changes. It's direct, it's serious, it's speaking right to those who already have knowledge, the people of the Scripture. And the questions are so sharp. Why do you deny the truth? And even more seriously, why are you actively trying to block other people from finding it?
You know, the verses basically lay out this four-step path of obstruction. It starts with seeing the truth yourself. Then you deny it, but it doesn't stop there. It turns into an active campaign to block the path for others and to twist the truth to make it seem confusing or crooked. And this is framed as a very heavy spiritual crime.
This just leaves us with this really deep, psychological question that the passage forces us to think about. What makes someone who knows the truth not only reject it for themselves, but actually work to make sure others can't find it either? It's a profound question about pride and power and human nature.
And so, to wrap it all up, we have to turn the lens back on ourselves. The passage took us from personal sacrifice to a universal center and ended with moral responsibility. So the final questions for us to reflect on are these. What is your gold? What's the thing you're attached to that you need to be willing to give up? What is your Kaaba, your spiritual center, your true north? And maybe most importantly, what truth are you a witness to? And are you clearing the path for others, or are you somehow obstructing it?